etc. Mistakes. I think that these two characteristics, which are seemingly contradictory, are actually dependent, are actually mutually dependent on each other.
Mutually constitutive. Yeah. I'll give you an idea. It's nice example. I agree with you. It's a nice example I saw the other day. You know, I went to the St. Ignatius Day celebration, and hoping to see all the old Jesuits I knew. Of course, there was somebody that I knew. But anyway, there was a group of folks from Payatas, and they were wearing these really nice black T-shirts because they were involved in this project called Rags to Riches, where they were transforming garbage and paper and so forth into crafts and right? So at first I thought, oh right, that's a nice pun from rags to instead of people to riches. But what really got me was the slogan in the back. In the back of their shirt, they had written "Buhay ang pag-asa," right? And so I thought that's kind of an interesting term because you could say "Buhay ang pag-asa" or you could say "Buhay ang pag-asa," right? So in one case you could translate it as, you know, hope is alive. Another way you could say life is hope, right? And then you think about, well, what is the difference between saying "Buhay ang pag-asa" and "Buhay ang pag-asa," and how the two are complementary and yet irreducible to one another, right? And so you're caught in this vertigo, right? This vertigo of undecidability. But it's a vertigo of undecidability which appropriately enough links hope with life, right? Which is exactly what I was talking about. The question of untranslatability is linked to this vertiginous movement, which is sometimes conflictual and sometimes complementary. That is the substance of life. Buhay ang pag-asa. If I do Tagalog version of this, buhay, then buhay ang pag-asa.
Maybe just like this. I forgot to say this. I think it also has parallels with what Socrates considered true knowledge. Because I believe I read something that he said that I know that I do not know, therefore I know, or something along those lines. But I think his point being that the fact that he does not know, but the fact that he knows that he does not know, makes him the wisest man in the world.
But there's another flip to that, which is this: what if you don't know that you don't know? It means one thing that you know that you don't know. It's not if you don't know that you don't know. And then you're open to the possibility of being shocked by the knowledge that you don't know, right? And then the question is, what comes out of that shock experience?
Which brings us back to the United States.
Yeah.
I was sort of completely in sympathy with your attack on or critique of American exceptionalism, but it's such a difficult thing to avoid. And it seemed to me that you're circling back towards it in some ways. It's the argument about the particular way in which translation is handled in American culture. You know, sort of, I assume you're thinking in terms of the American Imperial Project, and is quite unique, or at least
I don't think so. I think it has analogies to the Spanish the translation in the Spanish context.
But it does have a sort of cultural. Because I just wondered, you know, all the other ideas that people were throwing around about translation do seem to me to problematize that. But you know, it may be just as complicated. The politics of translation is just as complex.
One sees it, for example, in numbers of literature.
Yeah.
It's always when you look at literature, that all of a sudden these ideas about exceptionalism, about nationalism, about colonialism is right away complicated. The moment you read anything by Whitman, by Boyce, by Bosa, by anybody, literature is always a place where precisely the no question of American exceptionalism immediately explodes.
But it did seem to me that you were suggesting that there was a distinctive American understanding.
Let me say that I think that this is an understanding that is dominant among state elites. That where the state is concerned, that a necessary accompaniment of state power. Or rather, that once one assumes state power, one wants, when somebody occupies a position of power within the state, this is a position that one, whether consciously or unconsciously adopts.
So it's
whether
more about- it's more to do with power.
It has to do with the state, and not just power. It has to do with the state. The state acts in a certain way that tends to instrumentalize everything. So it's not surprising that you instrumentalize language. But even within, or even among state actors, it's not inconceivable to have, for example, State Department. Right? State Department people who spend a lot of time in foreign countries and develop fluency and sympathy. Fluency of the language and sympathy of the culture. Sometimes become the most adroit critics of this kind of American logocentrism. These are the kinds of people who precisely leave the State Department to go to graduate school and do something else.
In that example, you just said that my opinion is the work of translation and developing the tools of translation should that be embedded in, say, a department of linguistics or languages, or should it be more a subdivision of a school of government or political science? Because I think that's basically what you're saying.
No, it's not what I'm saying. It's, certainly, yeah, I mean, there's two things. For one thing, translation is unavoidable, whether or not you want to or not. But the study of foreign languages, at least in an American context, tends to be relegated to linguistics departments. It tends to be relegated to area studies departments. So you have entire groups of academics. It's very, very common in American academics that they know only one language, that they can only read one language, that they can only speak one language, and they're incredibly monolingual. And it's unusual. It's increasingly, it didn't used to be. It's increasingly unusual, for example, to have people who can read at least another French, Spanish, German. It's increasingly rare to have people like that. More and more American academic training become much more polished, much more instrumentalized.
I mean, both in the US and China, for example, the work of translation is increasingly taken over by the state.
Well, that's true.
So I was saying, I mean, if academics said they ignore it, because maybe they missed the point about it, it really is a form of state practice. It is a state practice.
It is a state. It tends to be monopolized by the state because the state tends to monopolize resources, including resources for the study of translation. Who's going to pay you to translate a novel, right? You could be lucky to get a grant to do this, but it's not a ongoing thing. Whereas the state regularly employs translators to do nothing else but translate. So it's a different. It's a question of who ends up monopolizing resources. Exactly. Yeah. In this case, they tend to frame it as in terms of the language of nations, which of course can be any.